I think it's very easy to like sacrifice yourself with Mesiras Nefesh, kill yourself with Mesiras Nefesh. It's another thing to live with it. Very, very hard to live on a level of, I'm going to still be in a world where they're, try and be a little bit of a yeshiva tzaddik and surrounded by all these things and, stay strong. That's a much bigger challenge. And they told me they were going to let me go. They let me go. They fired me.
Really?
So lost my record deal. I went to yeshiva, lost everything essentially. Lost, the whole infrastructure of a major record label. I lost my band because they were kept on a retainer by the record label. So had no way of furthering my career really. There was nothing left. And I was, right back to, point zero.
It looked like the dream had been crushed.
The dream had been crushed, yeah. It really felt like that. So I, went and left the music industry for a few months and got a job in Stavit Hill.
Wow.
To get some money, ultimately to go to yeshiva.
Unbelievable.
I was going to go to yeshiva and I had a plan to go to yeshiva and got a bit of money together and before I left for yeshiva, that was a miracle. It was a nice.
We spend our lives chasing success. Alex Clare stepped away from it when it looked like he had it all. Today's podcast episode is not about the music charts. It's about identity. It's about resilience and restraint. And what do you do when you've already achieved your dream?
Deep.
Alex,
Hi.
thank you very much for joining in between the lines.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've done this before.
I have done this before a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But there's always a Kiddush. There's always a Kiddush to be found somewhere.
But what's very interesting is that when I told my older son that Alex Clare's coming on, I always said it's very excited because he loves Back of the Wagon songs and this
times.
and that. And then I told I've got a friend of mine who's not religious, and I said, "Oh, you know who's coming onto the podcast?" Alex Clare. He said, "Oh, I remember going to see him in Glastonbury."
Oh, there you go.
And that itself is like fascinating because there's like the before.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the now.
Sure.
So I guess let's for those. Well, many people will know you, but for those that don't know you so well,
Yeah.
would you say you arrived on the scene not when you were born, but you arrived sort of on the music scene 2011?
I had my first big breakthrough hit in 2012. Released my album in 2011 that it was on. But I've been working away in the music industry in the background and on other people's projects and as a musician since I was 15 years old. So quite a long time, actually. It was already, well over, however many years it was, but over a decade.
Well, so was music like the love of your life from when you were
sure.
very young?
I think it was always something to aspire to. Growing up in London in the early 2000s, in the late 90s, early 2000s, there were so many incredible musicians around and so many opportunities for music, to hear music, to play music, to buy music. It was really just a very, very strong culture. And I love playing, love, writing music. And it was just a very strong culture.
Did you get that? Did your parents encourage you with music? Were they musical?
For sure. My grandmother, she could play piano by ear. She could get any song and play it back to you.
No, really?
My siblings all play some kind of instrument. My parents, not really. Kind of skipped a generation, but there's a lot of music in the house. My dad was very into jazz. My mum was very into things like Eurythmics and Marvin Gaye, and so there's a lot of music in the home.
And you as sort of a young child already, that was your thing. You loved it.
I think initially I wanted to be Indiana Jones. Actually, that was my original aspiration. And then I realized archaeology has got nothing to do with running around in a leather jacket beating up Nazis, but digging holes in ditches, and it lost its appeal pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
So then the next best option after Indiana Jones was be a rock star. So yeah.
Was that the dream, to be a rock star?
It was, for me. It was never to be a rock star. It was to play music and just make that my world, make that my life. The rock star culture was very, very strong amongst my social group. The idea of being the kind of reckless, hedonistic, exciting, a bon vivant, a libertine, all these things were, very attractive.
Well, it's probably still that that type of life is attractive
Oh, it's
across the
awesome.
world.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I mean, it's just sort of do what you want.
Yeah, do what you want and have zero accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
So at that, so you're growing up, you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And then what happened next?
What happened next? So left school at 16. Went to chef school actually. While playing in bands, my parents gave me a good eight, so they said, why don't you just try and get a real job as well?
Were your parents worried that you wanted to become this musician, which might not have
I'm the
really
youngest.
taken
I'm
off?
the younger. I've got quite a lot of siblings, so I think by the time it got to me, I think they were just like, "He'll be okay. He'll probably be all right."
Yeah.
We can only do so much.
We'll just wing it.
I was very strong-willed. My parents divorced when I was like 4. As a result, I had a lot of freedom. Throughout my teenage years. You can, if you know how to manipulate the system, you can like play one parent off against the other one and be like, where's Alex? Oh, he's by you. So I always was very adventurous and taking risks and looking into the world. So yeah.
Okay, so when does the song?
So in 2008, when I was already becoming, more or less frum, I had a friend. And I realized that relationship wasn't tenable. And I wrote it. I went to the studios. At the time, I had a development deal with a little publishing company called Pure Groove Music. And I went into the studio to work with a guy called Jim Duguid, and I had this idea for a song, and we basically hashed it out. And I walked out the studio that day, and I knew it was a banger.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you often hear from like musicians that some of the songs that became famous they never thought would, or the songs.
That's also the case. But
this one, you just had that feeling.
That one I knew. It was a very strong song, and I'd written other songs. I've written songs since that I thought were going to be massive. That I really thought were the best songs I've ever written. No one cares.
Yeah.
And then other songs, you're right, that you just throw away for a few hours in the studio and suddenly becomes very popular. So you never really know. But with Too Close, I knew. So much so that I made a little EP with a bunch of songs that I'd written and recorded, and it was really on the strength of that song that I got my major record deal. It was on the strength of Too Close that the record label, Island Records, who signed me, knew that it was a hit and gave me a record deal in 2009, and then 2009, 2010, 2011, working on making that album.
So you were already becoming
Shama Shabbos, kosher.
So
at that point,
how like most people would have probably said.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's a bit like someone who wants to become a professional footballer, and then they decide, okay, I'm coming from, so it's basically, you've got a choice, you can't do both.
Yeah.
And yet you, at that point, still feel, I can do both.
For sure. It never seemed like a contradiction. I think most of, as I was growing my religious observance, I wasn't trying to be a Haredi Jew. I love Shabbos. I grew up with a distinct lack of, stability growing up. And when I saw my friends who invited me for Shabbos, it was suddenly like a beautiful world I had an insight into. It was very, very appealing. And, slowly but surely I started walking into that world, and it didn't seem like it was going to be too at odds with each other. Shabbos, turns out quite difficult to keep if you're, or I should say it's quite hard to be a rock star if you're Shomer Shabbos. It's hard to be Shomer Shabbos if you're a rock star.
But at that point, that didn't come into your mind.
Yeah, I never thought. I realized that most gigs are on Friday nights. That's most gigs for emerging artists are on Friday nights, especially in London with like Club Enemy and all the clubs that were, big club nights for new music. They were always on a Friday, as were most TV shows which had live music. If they recorded live, it was usually broadcast on a Friday or a Saturday. So there were going to be those issues, but I didn't really think about it at the time. And my major record label also didn't really think about it at the time. Yeah, till later.
We've got to hear that story.
So
many people have heard it, but even though I think you've got to hit.
There's an assumption a lot of people have, they think that when Too Close was a massive hit, I became like from afterwards. They have this assumption that, it was like he was a huge rock star and then he walked away from everything. I'd walked away from everything before I had any real success. I'd given it up. And
what does that mean when you said give it up? What you did?
I went to yeshiva. I was like, I'm going to go learn. I'm going to go sit in yeshiva and learn. And that was my plan. I should probably go back.
Why did you decide that? Because
to go to yeshiva?
Yeah.
I really like learning Torah. Really speaks to me, and to have a connection, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and learn his Torah was always something that had a lot of appeal to me and something I really wanted to do. And even when I was initially signed with with Island Records, I had like a 5-year plan to go to yeshiva.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you were almost like planning your exit strategy.
I wasn't planning an exit strategy. What I was planning, my plan was make an album with Island, release it, tour it, get ahead in life, take a break, go to yeshiva, come back, make another album, release it, see where I was going, and go back to yeshiva.
Oh,
I had
really?
this sort of cycle in my head that I thought would work. Turns out it kind of did work, accidentally.
Yeah, so it's amazing that was the plan, because as I say, like I'm just like keep thinking most people like about shovels, it's either one or the other. It's, and you, it's like,
see, I think it's a big mistake. I think when people, fiery Bali Tshuva, the tendency to divorce themselves completely from their past is very unhealthy. And the Rambam does say in Hilchos Tshuva, shani makom, shino shame. Like these are things that a person should do when they're trying to make tshuva, to change their identity and to change their place. You can't do that anymore. The world is a very, very small place. You can't run away from yourself anymore.
yes,
And sometimes people associate tshuva with, divorcing themselves from the parts of themselves they don't really like. Newsflash, you schlep all those parts with you. You might be a very religious person. You're still going to have the same tivas. You're still going to have the same desires. You're still going to have the same idiosyncratic personality traits that will drive you crazy. You can't get rid of them. So too, the easiest thing to do is throw away the external parts. Change your career, change your mindset, change your social setting. Very easy to do that. To be, destructive. Take the sledgehammer to your life and pull it to pieces. But it's very, very superficial. It's very, very superficial to do such a thing. I think it's very easy to like sacrifice yourself with Mesiras Nefesh, to kill yourself with Mesiras Nefesh. It's another thing to live with it. Very, very hard to live on a level of, I'm going to still be in a world where they're, try and be a little bit of a Yosef Tzaddik and surrounded by all these things and, stay strong. That's a much bigger challenge. I'm not saying that I always succeeded, but I think it's a healthier place to be in.
Yeah, so it's interesting because they often say quite a lot of the children of Balei Tshuva struggle because the parents are
so full on.
And the kids feel like, there's like two lives and then the parents are trying too hard to force on this new life for themselves as much as it is for the children. And
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel authentic always.
I think also the parents are usually trying to figure it out as they go. And it's, they have kids. And they're still very much on their own journey. So now you've changed, and now you've got a whole other relationship dynamic in there. You've got kids thrown into the picture.
Yeah.
And when you're still a kid yourself, we're still all just kids trying to figure it out. And you have to have responsibility, obviously, for your actions. But I think usually when the kids get a bit older, they've done a bit of work on themselves, they probably realize like, oh, they're doing this for the first time too.
Yeah. So was this song that was like Too Close? Was that the friendship? Was that a friendship that wasn't healthy?
It was actually
religious reasons or not?
It was more for religious reasons, and I think just heading in, like I said in the song, we're heading different ways, and that was that. It wasn't an unhealthy relationship particularly. It's a great girl. It was a nice friendship, but wasn't one that I could sustain.
So that's also amazing because the sort of motives for the song came from
growth,
a good place, and so it's sort of maybe that gave it the extra siyata shema that became such a hit. Across the world. It was, I think, eighth in the US charts.
It was number 1 in the airplay charts. It was number 1 in the indie charts and number 7 in the Hot 100.
So
it depends. There's a few different charts.
And it was top of the German charts.
Top of the German charts. Yeah, it was number 4 here. Yeah.
So was like, how did you? So at that point, when it became the hit, and did it become the hit because when Microsoft took it, or was it beforehand?
It wasn't a hit. So when I first released it, the hashgacha pratis was that nobody really cared about it. It wasn't getting played on radio. It wasn't charting anywhere.
Were you frustrated then because you thought this was going to be it, and it wasn't becoming it?
One thing you realize is that everything in life is siyata d'shemaya. You can make as much ishtadlus as you want, but if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And when the time is right, the time is right. And we lined up all the ducks in a row. But if radio don't want to play it, you're not going to get the exposure you need, and radio wouldn't touch it. When we put it out, it's only literally when I lost my record deal, ostensibly for the reason is for keeping Shabbos. That's why the record label essentially let me go.
Can you tell us that story?
I'll give you an abbreviated version. So the abbreviated version is when I signed my record deal, I was just getting into the world of Shmir Shabbos. By the time I released my album, I was fully immersed in Shmir Shabbos. And I was turning down concert after concert, gig after gig. In Pesach time, I was offered a gig with Adele.
Who's she?
Exactly. Yeah, a singer-songwriter from London.
Yeah.
Did quite well for herself. So I had to turn that tour down because it was Pesach. Record label thought I was mad. Came round to Sukkot, and I said to them, guys, there's Tishrei, the whole month of Tishrei. I said, there's just like I have Shabbos every week, and I had a whole week of Shabbos at Pesach, and I got a month of Shabbos of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot. And they called me. Motzei Yom Kippur was a Saturday night that year, and they told me I had a concert. They could get me a show live on the BBC the following Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Following Thursday. And I said, following Thursday is obviously Sukkot. And they told me they were going to let me go. They let me go. They fired me.
Really?
So I lost my record deal. I went to yeshiva, lost everything essentially. Lost, the whole infrastructure of a major record label. I lost my band because they were kept on a retainer by the record label. So had no way of furthering my career really. Saw a few Nissim in that time.
Were there times where you thought, that's like you say it now very matter of fact, you obviously many years later.
Should I make it more dramatic?
But at the time,
it was terrible. Yeah, it was horrible.
And did you have like thoughts like Hashem, like I'm doing all this for you, and you just like throwing it back in my face?
So I went to my Rav, it's called Rabbi David Tugendhaft. You may know.
Oh yes, yeah.
Friend of the show, hopefully.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Got to get him on board. He's so sweet. So I went to him and I said, I don't get it. I'm trying to keep Shabbos. I'm trying to keep kosher, learn Torah, be the best version of myself within a halakhic framework to be close to Hashem. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because I'm OCD or anything else. I'm doing it because I really like Shabbos. I really like Torah, and I love Hashem. And I said, I don't know why my whole career is now thrown on the garbage heap. And he said to me, he said, you're Alex, you're a.
Were you angry or sad?
Sad. First, I thought, it's not. Here's the thing. I think for most men, most of us, the first real emotion we're aware of is anger. We're like, I feel so mad about something. Usually there's lots of other feelings that, get you to that point. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe there was a little bit of anger there, but I think that's only because there were a lot of other feelings that weren't being dealt with as well. So I think that is certainly true. And Rabbi Tugendhaft told me, he said, Alex, if you're willing to sacrifice the things that are important in your life for Hashem, your career, you're giving up your career, you're making a huge sacrifice for the sake of keeping Shabbos, you'll see Siyata D'Shema, you'll have help from heaven. And I thought, it's very nice, Rabbi, but I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my band. I actually ended up working for a property management company in Stanford Hill at that time.
Really? What? So you had finished yeshiva?
I hadn't gone to yeshiva yet.
They hadn't gone, right?
I hadn't gone to yeshiva yet. I needed some money, and from being signed to a record label, getting sent to Jamaica and to New Orleans, and
everything was ready for takeoff.
Ready for takeoff. Made a whole album. Nobody really cared about it. The record company made the assumption no one cares about it because you're not promoting it properly, because you're not playing gigs on Fridays. Ultimately the career was over. And when you have a record label pull away, you lose all the infrastructure. You lose the press team, you lose the radio team. You lose access to all these different producers because there's no budget anymore. So from having quite a large record deal initially, there was nothing left. And I was, right back to, point zero.
It looked like the dream had been crushed.
The dream had been crushed. Yeah, it really felt like that. So I, went and left the music industry for a few months and got a job in Stanford Hill.
Wow.
To get some money, ultimately to go to yeshiva.
Unbelievable.
I was going to go to yeshiva, and I had a plan to go to yeshiva, and got a bit of money together, and before I left for yeshiva, there was a miracle. There was a nace. The nace was that there's a young man from Seattle, Washington, called Keith. Keith makes TV commercials, and being that he's from Seattle, Microsoft contacted him saying, will you make a commercial? He said yes. He made the commercial. They didn't like the music. So he, being a young man who's now, at the start of his career, doesn't want to lose this opportunity, he books in to meet music supervisors in Los Angeles. They're the people who sync, music from artists to TV shows, films, commercials, whatever it is. So Keith flies from Seattle to LA. And when he's in LA, before he walks into any meetings, he goes into his friend's house and his friend is playing my song Too Close. One of only 100 people in the US who'd bought my album.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fractions.
That's incredible.
Tiny amount of people. And as he walked into the house, the song was playing. He took it, he synced it up to his commercial. It worked. Went back to Microsoft. They loved it. He had to then find me to get permission, which is a whole Megillah in its own right. He was emailing Island Records, but I'd been more or less blacklisted at this point, so they weren't responding.
Mm-hmm.
So they were. So he had to find me directly as the songwriter to get my permission. I said yes. Didn't expect much to happen. Went to yeshiva. A few months into yeshiva, I started getting emails. Alex, where are you? Crazy things start happening. Radio stations here and there are emailing me. Different promoters are emailing me, and I don't really know how to deal with anything. I'm sort of ignoring it until a few months in, I get a phone call from Universal Music Germany who tell me that I need to come to Berlin the next day or to Frankfurt the next day because I was going to be number one in the charts there.
Wow.
So what happened is the TV commercial had been broadcast all over the world.
And you weren't fully aware of that?
I didn't.
You knew there was some
idea. I knew that there was a commercial. I knew what the deal was worth.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that money because I owed the record label. They own the catalog. So I didn't until it recouped. I wasn't going to see a penny. So I knew what they paid the record label, and it was nice. It was a nice chunk of money.
Yeah.
I knew that things were happening, but I didn't really realize, how massive it was going to be. So the commercial blew up. I always say IE9's advert was a much better advert for Alex Clare than it was for IE9. Because that song, people were shazamming it. Radio stations started playing it all over the world. While I'm sitting and steiging in Yerushalayim.
It's really quite a crazy picture to think about.
And it's, I see pictures of the day, like the first bit of promo I did when I go from yeshiva in Yerushalayim, got a massive red beard and wearing like a flat cap and a white shirt. It was a bit off-white because I hadn't figured out how to do laundry properly yet. And walking into Universal Music Germany and being told, you're number one.
So even then, you there's different challenges along the way. Even that, was that a bit of a challenge as well? Because, okay, you're sort of in yeshiva, but now you take a bit out of yeshiva because now you're suddenly rising up.
So my intention was not to leave yeshiva. My intention was just to go for a few days. And I spoke to the Rosh Yeshiva and I said, this crazy thing's happening. Number one in Germany. He didn't know what that meant. And he said, what do you mean a parnasa for you? I said, yes, that mean parnasa for me. He said, okay, you should do it just for a few days. So I went for a few days. And then other things happened along the way that was clear that there was a big opportunity there. So I decided to step away from yeshiva for a few months and go do some touring. And I did. Went touring. Went back to yeshiva for a little bit.
Was that tricky to do the touring? I mean, obviously you didn't do Friday nights and Shabbos, but
there's challenges.
You're still in a world which is
very
not
much so.
which is not.
You have good friends. Have good friends around you. Have good friends around you. People who know you and know yourself. But it's definitely a challenge. No question. But it's definitely not Yerushalayim. But I went back to Yerushalayim, after a few months, and then would sort of intermittently go back and tour, and then go back to yeshiva. Made another album. Got married in that time. Started a family. Went and toured some more. Went back to yeshiva, and in 2015 went back to Eretz Yisrael full time to go learn full time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So when people say, he stepped away from the music industry, I kind of stepped away from the music industry before I had any success in the music industry.
I can see that. Sort of, you stepped away from it, and then it sort of tried to pull you in. Yeah. And it's almost like, it feels like there's that tug of war that you have to keep bring yourself back to what you set.
Recenter yourself. Yeah. But I think that's really the avodah in general by us, is that, that's where we're meant to be. We're meant to be in that place of taking the physical world and elevating it spiritually, not running away from it. We're not sitting on a hilltop somewhere, in a monastery. We have to be very much in the world, doing and being involved, and that comes with the baggage that's out there. But that's Yiddishkeit, really. So that's how we've done it.
What made you decide in the end, right, you're staying in yeshiva full?
So what's made me, I really wanted to just spend some serious time learning. A year, 2 years, 3 years, 3 years turned into 5 years, turned into 6 years. It just happens. And I would still play shows. I'd still fly off to random places and play a couple of shows here and there. And I still do. I still, probably once a month I'm playing a gig somewhere, mostly in the US, and sometimes in different places in Europe. I'm now predominantly Jewish music. I sort of stepped away from that world more or less.
it's quite crazy because the one day you'd be like learning, I don't know, Bob and Matzia
Yeah.
Toisos, and at that point, and the next day you might be in some gig, some wild concert somewhere.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well,
It's a big paradox.
yeah, really.
We like a paradox. A paradox is a good thing. Life is interesting when there's a paradox, you know?
Did you see like certain people, let's say in the music world? I mean, I guess it's celebrities, but it's also people that you may have known and seen how drugs or life might have ruined them. Did that make you stronger?
I'd like to add that I've known many people who led that lifestyle who are actually doing okay now. So you hear the tragedies, but I myself was I was experimenting a lot with different things as a teenager and young adult, really pushing the boundaries of of my own resilience, mental health, all these things. And I think I sort of landed, thank God, it's Siyata Shema in the right place. And I knew many other people who also, were well and truly involved in the world of misadventure, and thank God survived. However, in my late teens, early 20s, I had some friends, I'm not going to mention names, but I had some friends who were really famous people who are internationally, on a pedestal, really out there. Some of them were very healthy people. Many of them were not very healthy people, mentally, drugs, alcohol, different addictions, different undiagnosed, mental illnesses that were, in hindsight, very, very apparent. But at the time, when a person is riding the wave of their success, no matter how, catastrophic or disastrous the internal world is, while they're making money, then they sort of just go hammer and tongs at the cold face without realizing that there's a lot of damage being done.
Of course.
So I had that insight at a very early age, in a very early stage of my career, and I knew that sheker achein v'leheveh yofi, like it's a real thing. People assume, the glamour, excitement, it's nonsense.
Where did you get that insight from?
I saw it. I saw people who were desperately unhappy. People who were miserable. And, myself also wasn't particularly happy in that world. You realize that people are unfulfilled, people are shallow, and people who are deep, who aren't shallow, the inevitability is they're going to feel a lot of pain and frustration in that world. But they've sort of been told that that's like the gold standard of living,
Because if you measure success by fame or bank account, then
exactly
that's all that's your sort of full career.
And unfortunately, a lot of people do measure, success by fame, by notoriety and bank account. The world is backwards and upside down and back to front.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not just the outside world. I'm sure there's plenty we have to answer for in our own world
100%.
when it comes to giving
100%,
respect and cover to those people with a with the bank account rather than
Adam Choshev, yeah.
So okay, so you decide that you're now going to forget the Torah and you're going to be in yeshiva.
Yeah.
What year was that roughly?
So in 2012 was when everything blew up. I was also in yeshiva in 2012.
Yeah.
2015 I went back to yeshiva full time, and I was there pretty much full time up until October the 7th. Yeah.
Really?
I was in yeshiva in Yerushalayim.
You still had calls from different.
Yeah, I'd still go and play gigs. You still have to make a parnassa, and I would still play shows, and I would still tour a little bit here and there. Do like a block of a week or 2 weeks of touring.
So what year did you decide you're only playing Jewish music?
After October the 7th. A lot of my friends, colleagues, you realize the virtue signaling from people, the creative community in the UK and America, who generally tend to be a little bit left leading and also very eager to be seen as righteous people. Wherever the social cause is, they'll jump on it very quickly without really ever thinking about it. I saw people who I've known and loved for a very long time really start attacking Israel, dog whistling anti-Semitism all over the place. And, we are very sensitive to anti-Semitism, but when you're seeing people who are, centrist, left-wing people, socially minded, good people, suddenly posting those lists of quotes from the Talmud, about all these terrible things taken massively out of context. And then when you start replying to people being like, even if it says something similar to this, you can see the way it's been translated and worded. It's clearly inflammatory. It's clearly out of context. That's if it's even true.
Yes.
You know, so having these arguments with people who just suddenly the cat was out of the bag, and you realize that there were people who are holding these prejudices towards Jews forever throughout our career. I have a dear friend, also from Manchester. She said, we were talking about one of the individuals who had been posting prolifically, someone I've been working with for forever, posting all this, anti-Semitic, conspiracy theories, anti-Zionism, etc. My friend from Manchester, who grew up in a traditional Jewish family, she said, in 1936 in Germany, when people said their friends and families turned their backs on them, and this is what it is. You see people like this. We both knew, and you'd say things like, how many Jews do you know to this person? How many Palestinians have you met? Do you realize that a great, number of your social circle and friends are suffering right now, and you're taking a very clear side in the situation, which is more complex than you could possibly begin to fathom. And when you have those conversations with people, you realize that, making the appearance of looking like you're doing the right thing socially is often more important than what's actually the right thing. So with that in mind, I decided that I didn't really want to work in that environment, at least for a time period. Did
you feel very let down by a lot of people that you counted as
I try and rely on Hashem and try and see Hashem's influence in the world. And, I don't think it's worth giving, if you do feel let down by other people, don't get stuck on it. Don't get stuck in it. It's ultimately the Ribono Shel Olam who's pushing the world in a certain direction. And we're just here for the ride.
But it must have been, I know someone who's an artist, and I guess that world, it's often sort of that often express some of the views, a lot of left-leaning.
Yeah, very much so. I myself also, I would have described myself as a liberal up until October the 7th.
Yes,
very open-minded, and still I'm very open-minded, and don't, people can, whatever decision they want to make for their own personal life, go ahead. It's fine, as long as you let me do what I've got to do. I'm not here to change the society begadol. I'm trying to influence the world around me in a positive way. And as long as you're not causing harm to yourself or other people, I have nothing to say to somebody who'd have a very different lifestyle to me. I've got nothing to say to them whatsoever. As long as it's not causing detriment to my community or to my life.
But people did lose, like this person who I know lost all their clients, lost all their work.
For sure.
You're blacklisted, you're a Jew.
Yep. So in my case, I had the advantage of, being a Jewish musician and being within the frum world, that I could change my direction and focus my energy on a place where I knew the music was going to be well received, and we could be mechazik people, do something positive.
So is that what made like a big change in you?
Very much so. Very much.
So beforehand, you were still sort of straddling both worlds. For
sure, and I was still putting out music and still creating and still, meeting people and doing sessions with people and writing for people and etc. etc. After October the 7th, I was like, that's it. I'm checking out for now.
Even though
I'll never say never. I don't know if suddenly I get sucked back in.
I can see already that who knows where.
You never know. That's up to the Ribono Shel Olam. I really, I'm very, like I said, very happy to just go along for the ride. Surf the waves of Siyata D'Shemaya and just see where they take me. So, never say never. But at the minute, my focus is on, being mechazik us. Yeah.
And that October 7th sort of, do you think you would have anyway sort of gone to that area, or do you think it was October 7th especially?
I think it was specifically that. I think my life changed. I was living in Israel. During that time period I was there, I lost students who I was teaching were killed at Nova Festival. And within my social setting and my greater circle of friends, it affected everybody in a very, very profound way. It was challenging for everybody. And it was just it was Hashem pushing me in that direction, pushing us all in that direction of really, trying to understand what's really important. Mm-hmm. I think I would have happily just continued with how my life was going. I had a great, sweet life.
Yes,
Koilel, go on tour, brilliant. Right?
Well, it's a life that very few people probably can ever say that they've had.
Yeah. Sure. It's different.
So again, that's at that point, October 7th, it's another sort of area of sacrifice, because you've decided the non-Jewish world where the money is ultimately.
So here's the thing. Streaming wise, yes, you're correct. Streaming wise, there is more money to be made in, if you're playing to a larger audience, you can make more money on the streaming. In terms of concerts, it's pretty much the same, actually. So, and the overheads are actually much lower, ultimately, because most Jewish events have bands, etc. So I can go in and play with a band I'm familiar with who aren't my band. They're not on a retainer to me. Go in, play a show, go for 24 hours, come back. It's actually pretty good. There's a lot of advantages to that. Now, what you do lose, there is nothing as fun as playing in a scuzzy venue in like Camden Town or downtown LA or Berlin, like a room full of sweaty people with like lights flashing. It's great. It's so much fun. In like most Jewish events, people having a good time whenever they start singing along or they pull their phone out to film. He's having a great time. Whereas you go to a room full of rowdy, former Eastern European, Soviet countries, and they're going absolutely nuts when you're playing. You can't compare the energy. It's like a real different vibe. But it's
that's such an interesting picture. Did it ever were you ever intimidated by it? I mean, you're clearly the Jew coming into the room.
By the rowdiness?
By the rowdiness and the fact that not everyone
from South
loves
East London.
Jews.
I'm from South East London. I'm pretty resilient to the rowdiness. I'm okay with it.
And they're not used to seeing such long beards.
It's all right. It wasn't so long at the time. I've only had the big beard for a few years. It was once in Russia, in Moscow, before the Ukraine-Russian war. Gosh, a lot of war today. Between the Russian-Ukraine war, before that happened, I did a private show in a club in Moscow called Sibir, which is not a name you want to hear when you go to Russia.
No, not for Jewish people anyway.
Go to Sibir. So I go into this very fancy private members club, very fancy bar, and there's the Lobsterlach and the tanks over there, and big fancy place, ridiculous cocktail list and different vodkas and whiskeys and and it was like a dinner show. So I'd play, people would have their dinner, and very nice, beautiful gig. So before the show, I was sitting in the lobby of the after sound check, and I'm before the doors haven't opened yet, or I thought they hadn't opened yet. So I'm sitting in tzitzis and a t-shirt, yarmulke, just a few hours before the show, just chilling out, getting ready to get changed and get the show on. And as I'm sitting there, this big Russian man just walks up to me, starts laughing at me. Whoa! I'm like, oh gosh, it's terrifying. Big old Ivan over there, and he's like, "You are a Jew," and I'm like, "Yes, I am." I'm wondering where this is going to go, and he goes, "I am Jew."
Oh, really?
I was like, awesome. And he said, "Everybody in this club is a Jew. Everyone in this club is Jewish." I'm like, what? Now, at that point in Moscow, for some reason, everyone had the same plastic surgeon, so everyone just had the same generic face. Everyone was looking like Megan Fox. I was like, walk into the plastic surgeon. I want to look like this. So you couldn't tell people were Jewish. So you couldn't see. You didn't want to do Yiddish upon him. But apparently everyone was Jewish. And then this guy, this big Russian, Yiddle, walks me over to the bar and he pulls out a menu and he shows me, and there's a list of kosher wines in the bar, which is unbelievable. So, if you sometimes feel like you're the odd one out, you're not. You're really just another person in a sea of people.
And you don't mind being the odd one out?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm very happy to be me. Took a long time for me to figure out how to be me. I'm still figuring it out. And homogenization is good to a point. And Mafresh asked to comment at Tzibor, you shouldn't set yourself apart from the community, etc. But within that community, we are all individuals, and it's important to maintain a sense of individuality. If you are different in any way, it's not a chesaron.
No. We're all we're all individuals.
100%. We all have that
different talent.
Absolutely. So it's worthwhile being an individual, and if that's just how you express yourself and want to be in the world, go ahead. Yeah. There's been a lot of revolutionaries in Am Yisrael. It's the Rambam, the Baal Shem Tov. These were people who the Ariya Kadosh, people who stood out consciously with their philosophy, with their way of looking at the world, and change things for the good, with a lot of hesitation and resistance from people at the time.
For sure. Do you think your music, a lot of the lyrics is often about finding meaning, and
sure.
Do you think do you look at that as that your music's also helped people?
I hope so. I mean, it's helped me. So that's good. And I think with the art, David Bowie once said that, don't play to the gallery. Don't play to the gallery. You're not going to challenge yourself, or I think it might be Mark Twain even who said that there's nothing as dangerous as entrenched success. That a person who has found what he's good at and doesn't has a monopoly on it. You don't change, you don't grow. Whereas I think the point is that you have to be authentic and real and creative for creative's sake, not just to fall back into a character type or into a creative mode that's comfortable.
Yes, yeah.
Because you can do very well with that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when it comes to creativity, you kind of need to break it a little bit. You have to smash things up a little bit every now and then. So I think if in my own, struggle to find my own truth and my own connection to Hashem and to my own creative self, in that process, you sometimes have to take hard decisions and creative choices, and go in a certain direction.
Well, you're direct. I mean, I can't think of any other singer that sort of can do that sweaty. I mean, maybe someone like Mattisyahu had. Yeah,
for sure. He could.
He was someone,
and he's great. He's great. I did a show with him last summer in a summer camp in New York, and I never saw him play live. I saw him play once an acoustic show, and we played this show together. And I just looked at him and was like, wow, he has such a command, or he's so present when he was on the stage. And I think that's it for musicians. When I play a good show, I feel completely the synergy of all the parts of me suddenly just click. And I think that's why you hear about musicians or artists being a bit like a bit of a prima donna, a bit neurotic and a bit pedantic about detail.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think that the struggle to reach a level of that presence requires stripping away distractions, and that's why things have to be as good as you can get them. Now there's a lot to be said about being able to just get into the mode and let go of the ego and just enjoy. But for me, I never feel as present as when I'm sitting on a stage singing.
So can you still get that even though you're not doing?
I still play shows. I still gig, and I do feel it when I play. Not all shows, but most shows.
Well, and does it make a difference if it's the Jewish songs or not the Jewish songs?
So it's interesting. Some of the Jewish songs, in terms of engaging with an audience, obviously like Back of the Wagon and Spread Light, they did quite well. And, a lot of people, especially in the US, love those songs. So it's nice to engage with people. But, when you're singing like Too Close or Relax My Beloved, songs from my first album, they definitely go hard. Someone said, when someone said to me, when was the best time to write music? When's the best time to write music? And I said, 20 years ago.
Oh, really?
It's like 15, 16, 17 years ago, because in that mode, I was so focused on just creating and so in it and living it and doing it instinctively. And then it becomes a job,
It's interesting because some people would think that they would be surprised. They might think now that you're much more of maybe more of a spiritual person, or you're learning much more, that will bring out parts of your neshama that you never saw before.
Of course it does. In terms of learning and giving over a shir and
but the music wise, maybe just the years of.
So it's like a bit of a unicorn. It's a bit of a Don Quixote windmill to like chase it, because it's of a time. There was a moment in my life when that was very much something that was very important to me, and it's still something I enjoy. Like I love it. It feels great. Day to day, getting involved in a sugya, learning through different halachas and preparing a shir or Sivrei Chasidus. I love giving over Torah. I love giving over Torah and learning Torah. That's also a big passion.
So can we talk a bit about that, because that is obviously first on the music side, the Thank You Hashem movement.
It's good stuff. Absolutely.
For those that don't know so much about it.
Thank You Hashem. So Thank You Hashem is an organization in the United States of America that wants to make content, musical content, visual content, media for Yidden. And it's not about Kira v'choikim. I think the days of being focused on, trying to inspire non-observant people to be frum, still important. I think there's been a realization that, the helping people be proud of their Yiddishkeit, having content which is fun and stimulating and great for kids and for the age ranges 5 to 50. It's everyone and everything in between through Thank You Hashem. So it's an important organization.
And how is the organization, let's say through the music, how is that bringing people closer to Hashem?
There's a lot of noise out there in terms of social media. Even though the people are getting their dopamine fixes instead of from achieving and exercising and going out there and running or focusing on a task and getting it done. The current generation is so dependent on validation and stimulation from visual media on their phones, on their laptops. So it's there. It's not going away.
No.
That is currently the language of the generation. This generation is coming up. They've grown up with access to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's just a part
just
of
a screen. Anything which is
exactly,
just a screen.
It's there. So now what? Do you be miyash and say, okay, so it's a world we can sit there and fighting, shouting and screaming, Asur, if you want, you can, fine. And for
That's quite good fun.
Shouting, Asur.
Yeah, to go out there.
I love it. I miss it about Yerushalayim so much. The Shabbos, Chevra. I love them. I used to sit there and be like, go get them, guys.
we don't do that well in England.
We don't do that well.
No.
The zealotry. So you can sit there and you can hold a big placard and shout, about smartphones and the internet,
Mm-hmm.
or you can alternatively, use those forms of media to keep people connected in terms of their Yiddishkeit, to give them an inspirational message, give them a fun song, give them a good song even, why not? To keep people motivated, understand that, Yiddishkeit is actually, it's awesome. It's awesome to be a Jew, to be proud to be a Jew. There's nothing to hide. I think for our parents and grandparents' generations, I think a lot of people had to hide their Yiddishkeit. Growing up in a secular, European society within the memory of the Holocaust, don't be too Jewish. Don't grow a beard, Khalila.
No, definitely not.
Don't do such a crazy thing, And nowadays, it's like, in a world of craziness, in a world of madness, why not use that madness for Yiddishkeit? Why not say, I'm going to be absolutely meshuggah for Hashem, and if I've got a choice between the ruach shtus, the negative energy that pushes me in a negative place, I can use that energy to destroy me and to be focused on negative things, or I can use that same ruach shtus for kedusha. I can take that craziness, that wildness, and channel it into something holy and good. So I think it's so important what Thank You Hashem do, and what other creators are also doing. Not just towing along with the bandwagon and testing the waters to see if it's safe, but like going full on, let's get wild.
And is that often based, because I know, let's say you'll often give shiurim about different subjects. Yeah. Is it often rooted in Breslov?
So myself, I'm complex, in my avodas Hashem, like all good things. The luxury of coming from a Baal Tshuva perspective is that although Masorah is very important, the Hobbes Lavaves gives this beautiful mashal that's quite controversial. He says that the issue with Masorah, when a person has told you there's one God, yeah, and you don't really think about it, but Hashem is one. I say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad every single day, and I know what that means, in Pashat Pshat, oneness, but I never try and delve the depths of what it really, really means. As a result, the mashal the Chavos Lubavitch gives is a sighted person leading a whole bunch of blind people, and he knows where he's going, and all the blind people are hanging on behind him, following. What happens if one of those blind people suddenly trips up? And he starts clawing in the dark to find the guy in front of him to follow it. So Bali Tshuva, they don't have that issue. They're people who are constantly looking for Hashem and are trying to find their own understanding of what the yichud of Hashem really means, the actus of Hashem really, really means. And it's an exciting adventure to go on. Now, where do you find that? For me, the Sifrei Machshava of Breslov, of Chabad, also very into Chabad Torah, very into Breslov Torah, Rav Tzadok, Rav Kook even, there's the Sfas Emes, Shem Yishmuel, Degel Machne Ephraim, the Derech of the Baal Shem in general, the Talmidei Baal Shem is where I tend to, focus my energy and what inspires me. But you can also look at the sources that inspired them. So the Shla and the Reshis Chochmah and the Balei Musa who came, from earlier times, the Goinim. It's all relevant. It's all important. It's not one size fits all. And I think sometimes in our desire to belong and have an identity, especially for Balei Tshuva, where having an identity is so, so, so important, sometimes the social message of a particular group becomes very, very attractive. And as a result, people become a little bit dogmatized within that. I think all Breslov, all Chabad, all Talmidei Baal Shem, all of the Baalei Mussar, ultimately they're not trying to get a person to connect to a movement. They're trying to get a person to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Yeah.
And all those drachim in Torah are legitimate and inspirational and are very much worth having a look at. Now, if you have a choice between, Hasidic thought or the more sort of Ashkenormative yeshivish world, I once asked a mashpira of mine in Yerushalayim, I said, what's better, to be a, yeshivish misnagid or to be a Chassidish yid? And he said, the truth is, to Hashem, the chavivus is the same. If a person's real and he's sincere, regardless of which way he's following in terms of the Shivim Panim Torah, it does not matter. Doesn't matter. Hashem loves it. You want to be close to Hashem? That's great. He says, but if you want to have fun and you want to be a fake misnagid or a fake chassid, be a fake chassid. You get to sing songs, you get to say l'chaim. It's good fun.
Well, we also know that Halev Nimshach HaChamaisim, so if the Chatzonius is, even if it's not so genuine at the beginning,
we get drawn into it for sure. Absolutely.
You can see that the world is, we need more excitement and more.
Absolutely.
Maybe because the world's more fun, yes. It mustn't be dry because maybe because, as you're saying,
I did once. I heard it b'shem Reb Simcha ben Peshiska, but I don't know if it's him. Someone asked him, like, why does he have a tish? And he said, because the alternative is the cabarets. Would you rather your boys come to a tish on a Friday night and sing and like be connected?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, or go elsewhere. So I think that's the same idea of Thank You Hashem. It's finding a space to make Yiddishkeit exciting, stimulating, motivating, fun, all the things it should be and can be, to give a person a sense of tanuk. Like a human being can't do anything unless he's finding a sense of pleasure in what he's doing. And Yiddishkeit should not be a burden or painful. It should be mamash, like good fun. It should make a person excited in the morning when you wake up and be like, okay, what's in store today?
Which is not easy in England with the weather.
It's the weather. Exactly, it's the weather. Yeah.
But Alex, two questions I want to end off with. First of all, do you see you probably don't know because life's always changing for you, I can see. Sure. But do you envisage yourself doing more shiurim, giving over more of the Torah, less but still sort of, where do you see yourself in terms of music-wise?
In terms of music, I don't know right now. I made quite a lot of music over the last 2 years, and it's out there. I'm trying to focus on more of the teaching and learning. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of my life learning Torah, and it's something I like to give over to other people and to help other people understand and answer questions that people might have. If I have the answers, or at least point them in the right direction to somebody who might do. Yeah. So that's where I like to focus my energy right now.
Okay. And my last question is, we often ask, let's say we've had different rabbonim or doctors or celebrities on for you. And the reason why I ask this question is because very often people look at successful people, either famous people or people with long beards. You've got both. They sort of see them. Oh, everything's perfect. They've got everything sorted.
Can you imagine? That'd be nice.
What do you do to sort of look after your own emotional health, and how to keep yourself going when times are hard?
When times are hard. Daven, and that doesn't just mean like Shemona Esrei. It means really talk to Hashem, even when you can't. To understand that, to call out to Hashem when you're in a bad place. That's the umana of Avasenu. That's their trade. That's their real job. Our job is to daven and to speak to Hashem and to have that relationship. That's our superpower. And when you're in the pits and you really feel like you can't do that, even that is a challenge, just to know that Hashem is listening to every word, bahava, and doesn't want the perfect kavanas or the perfect articulation, just wants you to sit there and to talk to him and have a relationship. And the Baal Shem Tov is the biggest side of Hasmol Doicha Min Mekarebes, that when you feel the left hand of Hashem Gvura is pushing you away, and the right hand is going to bring you close, the Baal Shem Tov says you have to be incredibly close to someone to push them. And so if you're feeling the lakas and the pressure in life, Hashem isn't expecting you to be a big tzaddik. He's expecting you to just connect to him and to do your best and get through it. So I think when things are sub-ideal, to know that relationship is still there. Someone said to me, I want to be close to Hashem. Why does Hashem feel so far away? The answer is he's not far away. He's omnipotent. He's absolutely everywhere. You're never apart from him. He's everywhere you go. He's right there with you. The realization is, well, to work on the realization, then that relationship is always there. He's always there. He's not disappearing on you.
Unconditional.
Unconditional. Yosem ben Yochid. He loves you completely and utterly, and you have like nothing to worry about. You are already close to Hashem. Everybody's close to Hashem. Your level of realization to the Ein Sophius of it. That's the challenge. It's not a chesaron in him; it's a chesaron in our das.
Yes, and not always sort of in realizing what, as you're saying, our superpower.
Yeah,
I love that. Alex, thank you so much. I love your authenticity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I love the beard as well.
You grow one, it's all right.
I know my son always tells me that I've got to grow my beard. He wants me to grow a beard, but I've disappointed him so far. But you never know.
I can see you can grow a full one. I can see
one thing's for sure, it's going to be an exciting journey.
Nice.
I think from what we've seen already in your past and the present, and please God, the future. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.